Well, you know, one of the things about the show on how to look good naked was people always ask me, how do you look good naked? And this is my answer, is when you look in the mirror, so often I bet we're going to go, oh, I don't like this, I got to change this, oh, I got this bit of fat, oh, my pecs aren't that big, oh, I'm so skinny, And there's always, we're identifying ourselves by negative attributes. And I would always say, and I always say about this still, is that when you look in the mirror, when you look at your reflection, when you look at yourself, find one thing that you like about yourself. Just one thing that you appreciate about yourself. And then choose to define yourself by that. So instead of going, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, look in the mirror and just say, I like this. And when you start to realize that you like this, you're going to find something else you like, and then something else. And when you finally have an appreciation for that, you're going to take care of that. It's about building a relationship with yourself. And when you have a good relationship with yourself, then you can start building positive relationships with those around you, in your community, in your family, in your friends, in your social life, and in your professional life, in your company. How you present yourself is your brand. How you present your company is also your brand. And that's a very important aspect of doing business nowadays. Now, our next speaker is a bestseller on the New York Times list and the Globe and Mail. His book, Loop Tale, How One Company Changed the World by Reinventing Business. It's a pretty bold, audacious title. But he's going to tell us here, with his job, that he gets to travel the world and help other people do that. You know, he's not just content to have a happy, wandering life. He wants to help people do the same thing that he's doing. He is on a mission. Bruce Poon Tip is a global leader in sustainability and social enterprise. He's spoken multiple times at the request of the United Nations, the World Bank. He's spoken at Apple, Google, at TED events. His company, G Adventures, employs 1,500 people around the world. They've managed 15,000 expeditions on over 7 continents in over 100 countries. 100,000 people have gone through this company. Some of you are in this room here. And you know, it's not just about the business. He's taken the mission of growing his business based on his core values and helping other people understand how community, karma, and culture is necessary nowadays to grow our business. So what he's going to do right now is tell us about his adventures in building a world brand and sharing some of those lessons that he's learned along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bruce Poon Tip.
Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Great. Yeah? I'm very happy to be here in Vancouver and talk to you today about business models. We're going to talk about business models today and how businesses are changing. And I could obviously talk to you about exciting travel stories, but lately, you know, no one wants to hear my travel stories. It's like inviting people home to watch home movies, I guess. The people don't want to hear travel stories. They're more interested in about how I run my business. And I guess the biggest, the story behind Looptail and why people are interested in the book is the fact that I started, there's nothing more common than travel. Travel is one of the oldest industries in the world, starts going back to explorers, you know, and how can a company out of Canada, you know, create a brand that has transcended travel and has traveled all over the world. So Canada actually only represents about 12% of our business now. And we're a company that sells, people in 160 countries book tours with us in the last year. So we're truly a global brand. And Canada, as I said, only represents about 12% of our business. So we've actually managed to export tourism and export tours. And why would a German book an African safari with a Canadian company? So that's the magic that we create every day at G Adventures. Because there's thousands of travel companies, and people always want to know, what's the big deal about him as a travel company? But it's how our business has changed and how our model has changed that people are most interested in. And how we look at the social revolution that we're all in at the present time, on how the consumer has changed. And so, I do about, like last year I did about 40 speaking engagements around the world, and most of them were on entrepreneurship and business leadership and innovation and these kind of things, business models, about talking about our specific culture and how our culture is driven through our brand. All those things are very interesting, but today I wanted to talk a bit about the social revolution and about how business models are changing because the consumer has more information in their hands than ever before. The consumer is changing how they consume, and they're changing the way they engage with brands. And really, that's really, it's a bigger story, I guess, how we look at business and how we look at brand and how we created a company that's transcended travel. Like people do, travel with us, but when I speak at Google and I speak at Apple, they never ask me to speak about tours. It used to kind of bother me. I said, I want to sell trips. Maybe I can talk about an African safari, show some great sights. And they don't want to hear that. They want to hear about our how we view sustainability, how we view culture and brand. And today, how we look at the consumer and how the relationship we have with our customers is unprecedented. There is more, there's a more intimate relationship with customers and brands than ever before. And but the customer is also very confused because there's so much information, right, at their fingertips. But the loop tail, in my book, I talk about how companies have to transcend what they do. They have to engage customers to a much higher purpose than just their product. In the old days, and I've watched a couple speakers, and everyone seems to refer to the old days. About 10 years ago, or the old days, because like Facebook's only about, 8 years old or something like that? Twitter, less than that? So I mean, let's just go before social media, right? So we're going 10 years back, in the time machine back to 2003. In the old days. So people looked at things differently. When you looked at, for instance, Nike. Nike's a good example where a consumer, they hired Michael Jordan, paid him $100 million, right, to do these great commercials, and they made you feel a certain way when you saw him slam dunking the ball, and you walked into a store and you saw a Nike jacket, and you thought of that commercial, and it made you feel a certain way, and then you bought that jacket. That was traditional marketing, right? But today, the relationship with customers is much greater than that. It's much bigger. Customers are involved in your decision making. They're involved in all of your decisions. They can follow the CEO on Twitter. You can follow Phil Knight on Twitter. You can follow all of their employees on Twitter. You can follow their factories in China on Facebook. You can follow them and create a much more intimate relationship. And people create this relationship with the brands that make them feel a certain way, or they make their lives better. And that's what's creating brand loyalty right now. Like it's a very different thing. And large companies, as I mentioned, large companies are starting to have to act like small companies because the tools to engage are free, right? So let me just go through some of these things. The first thing that we have to understand is the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we created. Albert Einstein said this years ago. But I think the thing that is most incredible about social media and how it's changed innovation. Because people think innovation is something like Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs creates, new products for people. He did, and he puts new things in front of people all the time, and things that you've never seen before, you never thought existed, and he just says, you're going to love this. And you looked at it, and you decide for yourself whether you love it or not. But he is a very, very unusual entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs create products for demand. They see a need, they see something that people, every entrepreneur has their eureka moment, and they fill a need that's created by demand, which entrepreneurs are. It's 10 years ago, again, going way back in time, that we didn't have 27-year-old billionaires, and entrepreneurship wasn't so sexy. Right? It's very sexy today because, especially since the dot-com boom, and there's now 30-year-old and very young billionaires. But if you look at innovation and how people look at innovation, it's changed because today the brands and companies have this relationship where they actually create a two-way dialogue. That dialogue that Nike had, that one-way dialogue where they use the Michael Jordan commercials to engage their customers, is very different. And they're engaging their customers in all kinds of ways in actually developing products. There's beta testing, and there's all these kind of secret things you can sign up for to try new products, try new ideas, give your feedback. The conversation has changed in the very basis of innovation. And there's two types of innovation. I kind of use these kind of examples when I talk. The first one I talk about is Roger Bannister. People often say that one of the most incredible athletic achievements was Roger Bannister, who in 1952, when he went, 1954, when he went to the Olympics in Helsinki, he lost. He lost his race. And back then, there was thousands of studies that people were not capable of running a mile in under 4 minutes. People had been trying for decades. And there were studies that said, studies, which I actually read one, that said that if someone tried to run a mile in under 4 minutes, their heart would explode. It is not possible. And for years, people tried to do it. And sure enough, And people came close. Everyone was around like 4 minutes and 3 seconds. And there was just this barrier. And scientific studies showed no matter how tall you were, how athletic you were, how much you trained, you could not break that barrier. But Roger Bannister, when he lost in the Olympics in 1954, 1952 in the Helsinki Olympics, in 1954, ran a regular race, and he ran a mile in under 4 minutes. And he is celebrated all over the world for doing that as the greatest athletic achievement. But if you actually look at the video of what happened, he didn't run that race alone. He ran with 3 other people, or 2 other people. The 3 of them decided that they were going to run in front and pace each other. And they were going to take turns moving forward and back. And there was 2 other people that knew that they couldn't win the race themselves. So they joined Roger in deciding that together they will get him across the finish line in under 4 minutes. So this type of innovation, and he broke the world record. And the funny thing about that is 46 days later, someone else ran a mile in under 4 minutes. And guess what? Number 2 in that race, who got the silver medal, also ran a mile in under 4 minutes. So what that's, outside of being, that we don't understand the potential of human limits, the innovation involved in that is Roger Bannister used the traditional race he was given. He bent the rules slightly by communicating. There's a video online that you can see where the 3 guys talk about when they kind of take each other over. And as you know, because we all watch the Tour de France now, and we're even more interested now because of Lance Armstrong, but that he changed the game. He changed something that already existed, and now in biking they do the same thing where they have teams that pace each other and keep themselves in check, right? And when you drop back and one person keeps the pace to keep everyone energized, and then the person at the very end has the energy to sprint to the finish, right? So he changed the game. That was innovation. But if you look at it, there's all kinds of innovation that exists, but disruptive innovation is very different. There's value innovation, which is made very famous by a Canadian. Value innovation, one of the greatest stories of value innovation is Cirque du Soleil, where they reinvented the circus, right? But all of this happened at a time where the world and how we, the internet age when it came, like in the mid-90s, and how they displayed the art of the circus, right? And how they used a lot of the animal cruelty that animals had in circuses to change the way people looked at circuses. And that was because we all have so much information now at our fingertips. But if you look at disruptive innovation, it's a very different thing. It's people who actually not only change what they're doing, or they go into an industry and just change it slightly and innovate it slightly to move it forward. There's certain people that just change the game completely. And sticking with the sports reference, I'm going to just show you the high jump in sports as well. So this is how the high jump was done for years. The scissor kick, they call it. And they ran into problems because there was variables. There's variables now with the scissor kick because it was dependent on your height, and it stagnated. People just couldn't jump any higher, right? And so years later, to make the sport more interesting, they introduced a bag so to catch people so they could change the style that they created, the barrel roll. And the barrel roll was used for many years, and there was all kinds of variables that would cause people to jump higher than other people. But the rules were you had to take off from 1 foot, and now that they had a bag, it changed the rules slightly. And for years, this happened, and this was the high jump, and they would inch quarters of an inch every couple. Every couple years, it would be 1/100th of an inch that they would break the high jump record. Until this guy came along, whose name was Dick Fosbury. And Dick he never won a thing in his life. He tried to do the high jump, and he couldn't even qualify in his high school meet. Okay, so he tried to make the team, you had to clear 5 feet. He didn't make it. So the story, I guess, of Dick Fosbury is the most amazing thing, because he still continued, because he said he thinks he could do this, but he's going to rethink the traditional high jump. And he made it all the way to the Olympics. And when he showed up at the Mexico Olympics in 1968, the rumor was there was a guy who was going to jump backwards and the high jump. And people laughed and laughed and laughed. Who does this guy think he is? From Portland, Oregon. He's never won a thing in his life, but he's going to jump backwards and change the way people look at the high jump. Take a look at this. It's a video.
The 1968 Olympic Games proved to be a turning point in the history of the high jump event. Into the Mexico City Olympic arena came not only a new name to the sport, but a new approach, which was to revolutionize the high jump event. Dick Fosbury from the United States demonstrated a new style of high jump, which some considered strange and awkward. It was a jump he had devised in the previous years, and one which unsettled his opponents. While the crowd at first saw him as a novelty, his continued success at clearing the ever-increasing height soon made it apparent he was a serious contender. Fosbury took his new style of high jump over the bar and into the history books. Fosbury had won his gold. Within a few years, the Fosbury flop had become the standard method of jumping in this great Olympic sport.
So that gives you an idea of innovation using sports as the backdrop. But let's take a look at it through business. How companies use disruptive innovation to actually create products, and how they create a higher purpose around products to engage customers on a much deeper level than just traditional marketing. I'm going to just run through a quick example of Coke. We all know Coke. This is an example of Coke they had a recipe. They created a recipe, and it was, it's debatable what was in that recipe originally, why people liked it so much. But they came up with a recipe that is still highly guarded. They always talk about who knows the recipe to Coke. It's locked up somewhere in a vault in Atlanta. And so they decided to address people's thirst, because this drink was something that no one had ever tried before. And the minute you tried it, for some reason, it just alleviated your thirst. And so they went out to attempt to grow the biggest beverage company in the world. It's traditional business. They came up with the product. We learned this in school all the time. We came up with the product, we find the market, and we then create a company that exists. And for years, Coke has dominated every form of beverage. And anytime someone rears their ugly head, Coke has to destroy them or buy them, because they want to consume everything that you drink. And you've seen many. You've seen Fruitopia. Do you remember Snapple? Snapple was a nice independent company. Do you remember their commercial, "We want to be number 3"? That was the best commercial ever. There was a big parade of all the Snapple employees. "We want to be number 3." But yeah, no, Coke didn't like you at number 3. So it was bought. And so they've dominated for years the beverage industry. They control all the outlets, all the movie theaters, all the game parks, like parks everywhere around the world. You have to serve Coke products, and Fruitopia, all these other companies that tried to come into the market. Coke would say, "No, this is our town." And they would either force them to sell or force them out of business by replicating the drink. Then came a company called Gatorade. So Gatorade didn't have a recipe. So they created purpose around their concept. So they didn't have a recipe to start with Gatorade. They actually just had an idea, an iconic true purpose. And it was about athleticism. It's about being your best. It's about fitness. It's about a drink that was going to allow you to do exceptional things athletically and be a better version of yourself. And from that, they then created the product. They actually didn't have the recipe when they started. They created their true iconic purpose. They transcended beverages at that point. And they created their drink. And that was the disruptive innovation in the drink business. They could not stop the train of Gatorade. You know that Coke tried to develop Powerade, vitamin water. There's all kinds of things that they threw at us trying to get people off this Gatorade train. And they could not stop it because the product meant so much to people, because they engaged people on an intrinsic level, and it meant something more to them than just a drink, right? And there was a bidding war to get Gatorade out of the market. They could not have this drink in the market, and they couldn't stop Gatorade from growing. There was a bidding war, and in the end, Pepsi paid $15 billion to buy Gatorade to get them out of the market. To give you an idea of how even developing products these days, it's all about engaging a community and creating a purpose around your business. And it's almost going backwards to where you thought in business school, so you have to create a good product. You create a good product, then you find the market for it. Well, it's not like that anymore, because the communication in marketing is two ways. It's a communication. Like another good example of this is Dove. Dove is a soap, and I'm an immigrant to Canada, and Dove was the cheapest soap on earth when I grew up. My parents used to pay, $4.99 for 25 bars of Dove that was this long, that couldn't even fit in the car. They would tie it to the top of the car. My dad would say, "We got the Dove," and we walked home. We'd be like, "Yay!" It was either Dove or Irish Spring. It was the race to the cheapest possible soap. So Dove created an ad campaign that was social. It was a two-way dialogue where they had the middle-aged women naked, crouching down. Is it wrinkled or is it beautiful? And they engage people in a different way. I don't know if they changed the recipe of Dove. I don't know if they changed anything. But overnight, Dove became a premium brand. Overnight, Dove became a premium brand because they created a two-way dialogue with their customers and engaged them on a much higher level than just soap, right? So we're going to move into social innovation, and how social innovation today is traditionally social entrepreneurship and social innovation is about nonprofits. Nonprofit companies that act like for-profit companies to raise money for social issues. That's the traditional the definition of what social innovation and social entrepreneurship is. But today, social media has come along, and social media has created a transparency and a level of transparency that has never existed, and allowed nonprofits, small nonprofit companies like Kiva, microloans, all these things that are happening, Kickstarter, all these things that are happening right now that are they're all social ideas, and people are able to create their ideas and get funding for their ideas, and social media has created this level of transparency, and again, an unprecedented, intimate relationship with customers and brands, right? You no longer shop because you see Michael Jordan. You shop because that brand, you identify with that brand on a much higher level, because it means something to you. And I say in Looptail, the only brands that'll matter in the future are brands that make people's lives better, because those are the brands that are going to achieve brand loyalty in the future. But these two things have kind of collided and created a new business model, which is called social enterprise, and that's where we sit. We really are seen at the forefront of defining social enterprise and what social enterprise really means. And we're an aggressive for-profit company, but we also create purpose in what we do, and we have a foundation that creates community projects. We work with the Inter-American Development Bank and the Multilateral Investment Fund that gives us millions of dollars every year to build community projects around the world linked to tourism, creating sustainability through tourism business models. I can't get into all of that today in my limited amount of time. But what I do want to talk to you about is also how leadership has changed. And I want to show you a quick video about how leadership has changed, because leadership is no longer what you think is the A-type personality that sits in front of everyone, and leads their people into battle like Henry III. Leadership today, because of the transparency that's created through the social revolution, is all about creating a movement. It's about backing an idea and a collective group of people, creating a community and creating a movement that creates leadership. I'd like to show you what leadership looks like in about 2 minutes.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
In that video is that we can't all be leaders. That would be really ineffective. And the true leaders, and Batman is one of the, one of the examples I use, because Batman had all the glory, right? But he wouldn't have been Batman without that sidekick named after a weak migratory bird named Robin. And Robin is really the one who braved all the ridicule. He got the less spectacular costume, and he was Batman's first follower. And that truly is, what truly is what leadership is about, is the leadership of the first follower. And that is what the social movement teaches us today, and that, Steve Jobs or some of these great leaders, they come up with ideas, but it's the people that make these ideas real, and the first followers, the brave ridicule, that join into these is what creates a movement. And it's, ideas are a dime a dozen, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist. We all have great ideas, right? It's the people, the leadership that can create people to follow their ideas and create those first followers is what creates true leadership and creates a movement, right? And I've just got a few minutes here, but today it's unprecedented how large iconic brands have to act like small companies, and they have no choice, and I'm sure they don't like it. Because all the tools we have are free. So the opportunities are endless right now for companies to engage customers and create this purpose-driven business models by creating a two-way dialogue with their customers. And new ideas and at the point of innovation are all social exercises. And they're all about creating communication and creating a two-way conversation. In our business model is all about happiness. And many people ask us about everything we do in our company, which is in the book, is about our business model of happiness. All of our, one of the chapters in Looptail was about how we fired our HR department. So I don't have an HR department since 2008. And we have two departments, which is the Culture Club and the Talent Agency. And all of our programs, that there's 4 key pillars to happiness. We all think that happiness is about, your favorite pet or buying a new shirt or getting a new house. But actually those are just moments of happiness. We create momentary happiness. And the issue we have today is that people try to string along lots of momentary happiness, and that's why we consume so much, because we create all these moments of happiness to kind of make yourselves feel happy. Whereas the true core of us is about happiness. And there's 4 things that drive happiness, and they're all driven within our business and my business model. And that's really, the success of the book Looptail, because everything we do, all the programs we put together, are all about the 4 pillars of happiness. And the first one is the ability to grow. You have to be able to grow, or you can't achieve happiness. And it's a standard thing within any businesses. People should, if they work hard, they can grow and they can develop, and there's opportunities for them to grow. The next one would be being connected. Connectedness. You have to be connected to something. How many people have worked for companies or people that they can't stand? Put your hands up. Thank you for the people telling the truth. The rest of you are liars. Being connected is number 2. Being part of something much greater than yourself is the next one. Probably the hardest one for businesses, where you want to feel that if you're a receptionist or executive management, you are part of something greater than yourselves. And that's about businesses creating their purpose, finding their why they exist, why they do what they do, and what is their purpose, and make sure everyone within your organization understands that. And the last one is freedom, getting the right people in the right seat of every bus, not managing your bottom 10% and affecting all of the great star performers in your organization, because most companies spend most of their time managing their most difficult and underachieving people, and when you get the best people so in my business model, which is all about happiness, one of the things that people surprises is we eliminate our bottom 10% every year. Because when I get engaged people, I can create freedom. When I don't have people gaming our system, I can create freedom for other people within my organization. And all of that is detailed in the best-selling book, Loop Tail. So thank you very much. Do I stand here?
We're going to bring the stools over.
Okay. I went over time, sorry.
That's okay.
Just a few minutes.
So if you guys have any questions here for Bruce, I don't know where we should set these. Is this good right here for you as well? This is where we are. If you have any questions, engage with us at #NSBEngage if you want to ask him a question. But let's just start off right here. I love the idea when you put up the Batman slide and the Robin, because Robin gets a really bad rap all the time.
He does.
And when I saw that, I'm just like, great, now there is a logical reason for why he should be in the next movie. But further to that, I'm a DC Comics fan, a bit of a nerd there, but it's interesting too because then Batman becomes a leader because of the adversaries that he has. He is notable because of the Joker, the Catwoman, and all these people. Mm-hmm. Now, with these challenges to rise up and be strong, you mentioned the fear. How do you suggest that one can overcome that? There's lots of fears that we have: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of whatever. Mm-hmm. When we are at the forefront in that situation, being a lone dancing guy, in our own personal situations, in our businesses, in our lives, how can people deal with that? How can they combat the fear?
Fear? I mean, when it comes to entrepreneurship, I mean, fear really doesn't exist. So that's a very difficult question. You can't be fearful.
Why doesn't it exist?
Because entrepreneurship is driven by a passion and a desire that I think that comes intrinsically from people. I think one of the things I could talk about, for an hour is about defining entrepreneurs. Because there's different types of entrepreneurs. There can be someone who owns a franchise or a corner store or a video store on the corner, and they're entrepreneurs. But there's someone who can work at IBM and be entrepreneurial in their thinking and still be entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurs that truly create new products and new ideas and new ways for people to do things or see things are much rarer, and so they're trying to schools. I actually spoke at a panel at U of T recently because they want to do an MBA of entrepreneurship, and I'm very critical of that idea that you can kind of teach people to be entrepreneurs, because I think there's you can teach people to think entrepreneurially, but true entrepreneurs have a burning desire and they're willing to go to the mat for their ideas, and there's never a point where fear comes into it, because you have to find your place in the universe. And you have these ideas that you want to share, and even if you fail, you feel that you're successful because you did what you wanted to do on your own terms. And entrepreneurs are quite self-centered, they're quite irreverent, there's many characteristics that get them to that point. Overconfident, but the bottom line is fear is really not an option. It's not something that we ever think of. But you manage fear with people that work within your organization. So I manage fear within my executive team, and I teach the people that work around me to have a higher tolerance for risk, because entrepreneurs are about taking big risks, high risk, high reward type, making those decisions. And when you hire people that don't have a natural, that natural skill, you spend a lot of time convincing people to make those types of decisions, and that's you can train, but they're gambling with your money. There's a story actually in the Loop Tail where I took my executive team to Las Vegas. And I gave them all, I don't even know how much it was, $200 per each. And I said, the person that can turn that money into the most money at the end of the night gets an extra week holiday off work. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to see my executive team. Some people just took all the money, put it into one bet. Some people, tried different things. Some people went all night on 25% slot machines to find out who was more risk averse. Because I needed to know that, because I was about to make some very big decisions, and I didn't even know whether my executive team would have the stomach for it. And it turns out in the book that they didn't, because 4 out of my 6 directors left within a year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you're hiring, what's more important, passion or purpose?
I would say passion's easier to find because I'm in travel. I don't sell widgets. I mean, so if I did something else, I think it would be harder to find people that were passionate about whatever it is you do. I tell travel, so it's easy to find people that are passionate. But finding people who are truly purposeful and are committed to creating purpose within their lives is much harder to find.
It's harder to
and
find.
again, you can't train people because people don't even understand sometimes what their true purpose in life is. People would say that they'll only look at what they know. They'll say, my purpose is to raise my children, or my purpose is to, create a family or provide for my family. But they don't understand a greater purpose because people only make references of what they know. And when you create, if you wanted to, create your own purpose, you have to look much further than that. What your purpose is in life, what's your purpose in the universe, what's your purpose in the world. And I just think that we're not really trained or we're not really raised to think that way.
And can we be trained to do that?
Yeah, but you just have to have the desire. Happiness is free, right? You just have to have the intention and want to achieve it. I meet lots of people that are loving life just being miserable. They're just dead set on being miserable, and people are like that. They have no desire to be happy. Happiness is free, and anyone can achieve it if they just have the desire and want to achieve it. It's out there for anyone. But there are people that just aren't interested in it. But yeah, you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, happiness is free. You just have to go out there and find it. Thank you very much, Bruce Poon Tip.
Thank you.